Hey folks, what's up? David Simpson here again, Criminal Justice Realm, Remedy Project. We are here again to expose the nonsense that goes on within the Federal Bureau of Prisons and or the prison system that is a major part of the headache and or mental distress that folks who are incarcerated, the slaves, go through, right? The modern day slaves go through a lot of headache and distress from the system, not just the prison itself, even the halfway houses and or correctional community centers that they have, which usually are housing folks for the purpose of ensuring a successful reentry into society. Even them do a horrible job of fooling you that to make in making you believe that they are for the success and or reentry, the successful reentry of individuals into society. They do a horrible job of convincing and or fooling folks that they are really not just about the big business of slavery. And we at the Criminal Justice Realm and the Remedy Project are working together to expose this stuff at all levels using legitimate records that the Federal Bureau of Prisons usually hide and or manipulate and keep from citizens under the shield of the Freedom of Information Act. They make you file. If you wanted to see the documents that I'm going to show you now, you don't have to file on the Freedom of Information. They'll probably tell you they don't have them. And if they do tell you that they have them and this stuff is real, they'll probably redact the hell out of it so that when you get it, you can't see or understand what's going on. But here at the Criminal Justice Realm, the Remedy Project, we have access to this stuff because we help produce the remedies, on behalf of the incarcerated folks. So, we get to show you what's going on in real time. And so what I'm going to show you today is a case that is that the Remedy Project students just worked on, where this guy is in the halfway house, and he lost good conduct time because he was accused of escaping, and so they charged him with escape, and then they violated him by taking away good conduct time, which in essence lengthened his sentence. Right? So this is time for good behavior that he was supposed to get. They took away a portion of that, and extended his time, so he does more time in prison because they said he escaped. Now, I am going to tell you the story. I'm going to break it down. The remedy is here. We could read it from the remedy. I won't. But, folks, I've made sure we at the Criminal Justice Realm, we make sure that the screen, these documents are large on the screen, and so that you could see them and read them clearly so that you could see what's going on. And so that's what we're going to do. And so I'm going to show you in real time due process violations due to a misleading disciplinary process that folks have to deal with when they enter their halfway house, right? When they enter the halfway house or the community correctional facilities, specifically here in the Bronx and in Brooklyn. There's two of them, one in the Bronx and one in Brooklyn. Um, what you go through is horrible. I know from personal experience. I had my own experience with them. Um, so basically, I was not charged with escape when I was a slave in the Brooklyn halfway house. Um, However, my charges were different. But the disciplinary process, the violations, the confusion, and the violations of the disciplinary process are basically the same. Um, you know, at both facilities. And I'm going to show you here what this guy called Steven Negron went through while dealing with them at the halfway house. So this here is his BP9 that we prepared for him. And I'm going to break this stuff down and show you all of the stuff that's going on. And actually, as a matter of fact, before I even expose the BP9, let's just deal with, let me tell you, let me give you the story. Let me break that down to you. And so then I can then use those documents to show you what is going on, how unprofessional and uncaring they are when it comes to right to folks, to modern day slaves and their due process rights, and making sure that they are treated in a fair and impartial manner by all staff. Let me break that down to you. Okay, so we're dealing here with Mr. Steven Negron, right? Steven Negron is his name. He is residing at the Bronx halfway house at this time. And so Steven Negron, what happened to Steven Negron? Steven Negron is a Jewish guy that went home on a Friday for the purpose of observing his Sabbath at home. They allowed him to do that. And they allowed him to return on Monday mornings early, Monday morning bright and early, um, you know, after spending the weekend at home where they get to observe their Sabbath, the Jewish folks, or I should say the practicing Jews. And so Stephen Negron was given a pass to go home to do such thing. And one Saturday he went home and the weather was really bad. It was a snowstorm or heavy snow. And he had an apartment, a family apartment that him and his sister controlled, um, and were tussling over. And he was planning on moving into that apartment. His sister didn't want him there, so they had a back and forth. But that is irrelevant to what he was charged with, to his violations. But it's what caused him to be in problems in the first place. So Stephen Negron did the wrong thing by leaving his assigned home that the halfway house knew of, where he was supposed to be on his Sabbath, and ran across to this apartment that he was trying to move into, that he was prepping to shovel snow outside. It's not a violation of the Sabbath, but that's for him to deal with. That's for him and his religious beliefs and his God to deal with, right? That's that violation. Prison system can't get into that, right? But he violated the Sabbath to go take care of the snow. His just cause is because he didn't want people to fall and break, hurt themselves walking outside of his apartment. That's why he justified it. And so he went over there to shovel the snow and noticed that there was a lock on his front door, a padlock. And he decided that he was going to try to pick and or cut this lock off or whatever. The story is there. I'm not going to repeat it exactly by detail. And while trying to remove this lock from the door, apparently his sister was not too far away and called the police and said, hey, someone is trying to break in. And the police came and he saw it was him. And, well, you're trying to break in. On top of that, you're still in the halfway house. You're on probation slash halfway house. You're still incarcerated. All right, you're still a slave. What are you doing? Right? So they locked him up on that Saturday. I think he spent the night in their jail cell and was released the Sunday. Upon being released that Sunday, Mr. Negron um, communicated. I believe that he went into the halfway house and communicated with the staff, and he let the staff know, hey, this is what happened. On Saturday, I left my home to go shovel snow, whatever, and I got arrested. So I had police contact. Police contact, having any kind of contact with the police while you're in the halfway house and or on probation is a very bad thing. They automatically assume because you have police contact, you were up to no good, you were doing something wrong, and therefore you should be punished or re-enslaved, right? We got to put you back in that jail cell. So Mr. Negron he's back at the halfway house with the staff, and he's telling them about his experience over the weekend, right? That he went and this is what happened. His sister called the police and he got arrested. And the halfway, so he's there. Remember, he is there at the halfway house and he's explaining this stuff to staff. It's in their custody. And staff listens to this man's situation and turns around and writes a incident report charging him with escape. The basic normal understanding of an escape is someone who ran away from a facility and is on the run. They broke out and or ran away from a facility and is on the run. You don't know where they are and you're looking for them. They escaped. Did what I just explained to you sound like someone that escaped? I don't know. You tell me. I can't. I can't figure it out. Right? But this is what happened. So they wrote him this incident report for escape. They held a DHO hearing and or disciplinary process for this guy, and they took away good conduct time. They lengthened his stay in prison because he violated, because he escaped. Even though he was right there with them, he escaped. Right? So he's suffering this hurt. And so he reaches out to us at the Remedy Project, and the students see it, and and I break down what is escape and what the documents that they should take a look at to help him out, and they did that, right? But here's the thing: they could not appeal his disciplinary process and or his charge or violation and sanctions of escape because he was never given a DHO report, which is what he was expecting. And this is why he reached out. He's like, hey, this happened and I haven't even gotten a DHO report. I don't know what's going on. They took away my good conduct time and I have no DHO report. I can't appeal. Can you guys help me? And so I looked at what he was saying and I realized, hey, you know what? He's right. He doesn't have a DHO report. They've given him no documentation explaining his sanctions and why he was sanctioned and so on and so forth. So there was, in order to appeal an incident report and or sanction by a DHO and or committee, they need to give you back their form explaining that stuff. so that you could then use that to appeal it at the next level to get redress or to get relief. He could not do that because they'd given him no such documents. So, I, being fully aware that the process, the due process and or the disciplinary process at the halfway houses are different from what Mr. Negron was expecting coming out of prison, that he had no clue what really happened to him. And how do I know this? Because it happened to me. When they violated me at the Brooklyn halfway house, because I was 23 minutes late coming back from Columbia University working with students in a class with students, right? They sent me back to prison for that. They used that sham process, which I didn't understand. And I was a master at the disciplinary process. I was a master at the administrative remedy process. And I was at the halfway house being put through a process that didn't look familiar and that I never seen anywhere and had no understanding of. And it just read completely different, or it was completely different than what we were expecting. And that in itself is wrong. If you switch up the Federal Bureau of Prisons and or any of the systems that we are housing, is supposed to make us aware of their disciplinary process and how it's to be used and what is different or changes and so on and so forth. And I promise you, they didn't do it for me, they didn't do it for Steven Negron, and they're not doing it for anyone else. Folks who are incarcerated, who are coming from prison and or just sentenced to their time in these halfway houses, do not know and or understand the policy at these places, and so therefore their rights are violated. Okay, their due process rights are violated. The system, and when you're experiencing that system, it appears misleading, and the guys are lost and they don't know what's going on. So with that said, that's what happened to Mr. Negron. And so now what I'm going to do is show you how we attempted to address what's going on, and how staff reacted and how they were dealing with it. Right, so I gave you what happened to Negron, and so he was given the incident report, and they took away, he noticed that his time changed. He was going to do more time in the halfway house, but he had no documents to explain why and what was going on, and he could not appeal it. Right, so this is what happened. So after he reached out to us with this, I understood that we couldn't appeal his sanctions. I understood that the process was confusing and it was a violation of his due process rights because he didn't understand it, and that there were many other violations that was being done wrong to him, or that was done wrong to him in that process, and that needed to be addressed. One of them is he couldn't appeal the sanctions. So I guided the student, I believe it's Emily, to help him out, right? Yeah, assisted by Emily at Columbia, right? Columbia University. So I guided Emily to help him out. And so what we did was we prepared a BP-8. This is the first part, the BP-8, which then has its attachments explaining, what's going on with Mr. Negron, right? And it's attached to a BP-9, which is this blue form, and it's a civil rights complaint that they are violating him, right? And I'm going to explain that. But so we're doing the BP-8 and the BP-9 because this issue couldn't be addressed with regular staff, so we couldn't do just a regular 8 because it's a civil rights complaint and it's a severe violation of his rights. It had to be addressed by the director of the facility directly. If it was a prison, it would be the warden. And so I directed the students to prepare a BP8, BP9 for Mr. Negron. We used a general BP8 from the prison system for Mr. Negron because the staff at the halfway house, at the Bronx halfway house, refused to give him their grievance form and didn't have any of the regular BP8s. So we had to use one of the regular BP8s. The policy on the disciplinary process allows for that, right? So we used one and we gave a 9, and we said, we said here that this is a civil rights complaint against the Bronx Community Reentry Center staff for wrongfully charging me with escape and violating my due process rights. This is his civil rights complaint. This is what he's accusing them of, right? And so that has to be addressed by the director only, and it's a write-up, it's a complaint, it's a grievance. It is not an appeal. He is not appealing his sanction because he can't appeal his sanction because he was never given the correct documents, the DHO report and or the community's report for him to appeal. So he can't appeal. So what are we doing? In order to get those appeal documents and in order to expose what's happening to him, the wrongful stuff that's happening to him, we decide to raise it on a grievance and bring it to the attention of all involved that they are violating Mr. Negron's rights. So, and that he was going to exhaust, and he plans to exhaust this all the way to the courts if need be. Right? So we prepared this stuff, right? So this is what happens, and so here is his facts, right? Which is what I kind of explained to you here of what happened that day when he left his assigned home to go shovel snow at his apartment, his future home, right? Which he wasn't supposed to do it. There's no argument there. He wasn't supposed to do that. He did it. He got arrested by the police, spend the night in a cell, and then return to the halfway house. He should have faced some form of a sanction, but escape, I don't know. We'll take a look at that. Right? So this is the facts, like I said, based on that. And so this is a grievance. This is a grievance accusing them of wrongfully charging him with escape and violating his due process rights, right? Because the procedure is messed up and he didn't understand it. He still doesn't understand it, right? But after this reading this remedy, maybe he does better now, just a little bit. But does he know what the halfway house policy and procedures are? No, he doesn't. He still doesn't know, right? But he knows that he was violated by what we provided here for him, right? So there's a whole argument here. Okay, so this is a grievance. So what happened? So they didn't give him the DHO report, so he can't appeal. So we gave him a grievance. He went to the director and staff and said, hey, since you guys didn't want to give me any grievances from the Bronx halfway house so that I could grieve my issues, present my issues to you, I went ahead and I got a regular BP8. I got some help, and we got a regular BP8 and a BP9 here, and I want to turn it into you in accordance with policy, with the grievance process, the administrative remedy program, to grieve this issue. And they refuse. The director of the Bronx Halfway House and their staff refuse to accept his grievance. Violation, that's a hindrance of his grievance process. So they hindered his process by not giving them any of the ones that they have or that they're supposed to have for him to use. And when he got his own good stuff sanctioned by the Federal Bureau of Prisons, they refused to accept it. And they tried to trick him by telling him, oh, no, you're not supposed to be grieving, you're supposed to be appealing. Well, he said, well, duh, this is what this grievance is about. I can't appeal because y'all never gave me anything. I don't know and I don't understand what the hell happened. All I know is I saw my time change and I'm about to do more time in prison, and I can't challenge this stuff because you didn't give me the documents that I need to use to appeal. Therefore, I can't appeal. Again, that's another hindrance of his administrative remedy process and or disciplinary process. That's about 3 I got so far. So he says to them, hey, I'm trying to get this stuff. And they say, no, you got to appeal at the region. Right? That's what they're telling him here, right? They say you got to go to the region, right, with this stuff. I told her that exactly the problem. I never given sanctions appeal, right? So they wanted him to, to go to the region to appeal. But he can't, right? So that's what's going on in that document there. So, since they refuse to take his 8 and 9 attached, his 9 with his 8 attached, we decide to follow their directions and send his situation to the region, his complaint to the region. And it's not an appeal. He cannot appeal sanctions without a report, according to policy. I will show you this stuff. It's a grievance. The staff should have taken it. They should have addressed it. But they say, no, go to the region. Okay, fine, we'll follow your guidance and we'll go to the region and we'll submit the grievance to the region because you don't want to accept it. And so we prepared a 10 and we attached the 9 and the 8 to it, and we had him send it off to the region. Right? The 10 had a continuation page also explaining the violations, again, that they were hindering his process because they didn't want to take the grievance, right? And he couldn't appeal his stuff. So he sent that out to the region. While that's at the region, while that's been sent, while that's in process, the staff, I guess, was a little concerned that he came up with grievances and was trying to, write them up for what they were doing. They decided, hey, let's reach out to this guy, who is the head and the one who's responsible for all those who are incarcerated in the halfway houses in that region, named Mr. McFarland, as you would see here in this document. And they reached out to him and say, hey, this guy is trying to appeal. I don't know what we did or how we did it. I don't know. But can you help us, get this guy some documents so that he could appeal his situation, because he's trying to write us up for not giving him these documents. So this guy, this head guy he's the residential reentry manager. He decides, well, let me type up, let me type something up for him, right? So that you could give to him so that he could appeal. What? That's not the process. That's not how things is done. What's going on? What's really going on? So they operate. Just do whatever they want, right? These poor slaves. We are abusing them. What is his problem? He's supposed to be a good boy and take the punishment and abuse that we provide him. What is he trying to write us up? Okay, don't worry. I'll take care of it. I'll just type up this letter and, give it to you to give to him. It's coming from me. He knows who I am. So he's going to accept this as legitimate and he's going to file his appeal based on it. And guess what? I'll attach two other documents to it. This one and this one. And that should be sufficient for him to appeal. Now, mind you, which you will see, I'm going to show you this in policy, that a DHO report or a hearing report, whether it's from the committee at the halfway house that did it or it's from the DHO, they're supposed to give him back a report, a final decision explaining what happened, what their decision was and what happened and what sanctions he faces. And he's supposed to then take that and use it. So when he was given this incident report, he was then supposed to go in front of a committee in the prison system. It's the UDC. In the community, it is, I'll show it to you. They go by another name. And they're supposed to have a hearing. And then the stuff is supposed to, next step should be the DHO. Anytime you're losing good conduct time, a DHO, you should be seeing a DHO. A DHO is the person who is supposed to be addressing you, not a committee, right? That's accordance with policy. When it comes to policy, the committee is not supposed to be addressing you. It's the DHO, right? That didn't happen here. He saw the committee person. He then saw another committee person who claimed to be a DHO, right? So he went to one staff member at the Bronx halfway house, and they represented themselves as the committee as a part of the disciplinary process. And then he went to another staff member at the halfway house who represented themselves as the DHO. This is what he understands. This is what he told us. Something is automatically wrong there because DHOs, staff members at the halfway house, they can't be DHOs. DHOs, not to my understanding, DHOs are high-level ranking, let's say, attorneys who are given the task of being the DHO judge / prosecutor within the prison system to handle these claims. Not a correctional staff at the community center, right? So hearing all of that already let me know that this whole thing is a sham, right? And here's this guy, instead of giving, what is this? He can't even use this to appeal. It says attaches your copy disciplinary committee report pertaining above references. What? That's the committee report? If you disagree with the findings and sanctions, file administrative remedy within 20 calendar days. You must date and sign the appeal form. Right? Okay. Amy, but he doesn't even tell him. He doesn't even tell him that he needs to use a 10. He just tells him he needs to file. Oh, no, he does. He says BP 10 here. Okay, fine. Amy Butcher, Regional Director, not regional. Okay, so he tells him where you got to file. We advise your appeals is probably submitted. Okay. So he types this stuff up. It says, this document here, he says it's attached. Let's look. It says inmate discipline data, chronicle disciplinary record. So this is his record that's in the system. All right. It is not a report based on what happened. And so this here basically says report status, the number, sanction, the incident report, time, is hearing date. It has the hearing date, the chairperson, Bridges, right? Report remarks, search the packet, escape frequent one, right? This is not It doesn't explain what happened. It doesn't explain what his defense was and that they found him guilty and anything like normally comes in a DHO report. What is he going to appeal here? That just these numbers? What is he going to say to the region? How is he going to point out how they violated it? He can't, because they put no information here for him to do that. Let's take a look at the other document. Look, here, boom, hearing date, da-da-da, a bunch of regular information filled down on the top of this form here, totals for incident report, nothing. Absolutely nothing. What happened? Well, he came, this individual came before me, I read him his rights, told him what he was being charged with, he had nothing to say, or this was his defense, da da da, and we still found him guilty anyway because he wasn't supposed to leave or whatever. There is nothing in these three documents that says to Mr. Negron, this is why you lost your good conduct time in accordance with the disciplinary process policy. Right? Major violations here. Right? So as far as my professional understanding here is, this guy tried to dupe this guy to make him think that he gave him something useful to appeal so that he could go appeal. Right? That's all. Because this is not appeal-worthy material. Right? Let's move on. Because this stuff it's a lot, and I don't want to take up too much of your time, which I usually do. This stuff is fun. I gotta show it to you. This is how you learn, this is how you understand what they're doing and how they do it so that you could push back. You gotta push back because they are going to continue doing it. They've been doing it for decades. And if no one exposes how they do it and why they do it and push back, it's going to continue happening, right? Slave nation. All right, let's get it. So this is your inmate disciplinary program, right? This is the actual policy of the Federal Bureau of Prisons, right? This is the first page. I had the first page so that you could see that is the actual program statement. Its purpose and scope, right? Talks about, dealing with that stuff. Of course, I didn't attach the whole program in here. I switched. I want to give you an understanding of the extent of what's happening to us in the system, how we're being violated. For those of us who know and who have an idea of the disciplinary process, this is what we see. This is what we understand while you're in prison. This is the one that you know. You have a unit disciplinary committee which you go in front of for your hearing. Person reads you your rights, and they explain to you your incident report. They ask you whether you're guilty or not. They conduct a hearing, a UDC hearing, and if you're not losing good conduct time, these guys at that level will find you guilty or not and deal with the situation appropriately. If they find you guilty, they give you back a UDC report. Written report. You will receive a written copy of your UDC decision following its review of the incident report. So after the UDC hearing, after they dealt with you, they find you guilty or whatever, they give you a report. And you can appeal your situation, your sanctions, or whatever happened to you now at the warden level. At the halfway house, it will be at the director of the halfway house's level, right? This is what's supposed to happen. And mind you, this is if you're not losing good conduct time. If it's a serious charge like escape is, you're going to lose good conduct time, so the UDC can't sanction you. The UDC has to refer the case to the DHO for the DHO to review. Because according to this same policy, only the DHO is allowed to take away good conduct time from you, right? That didn't happen to Negron. Two staff members, one held a UDC hearing, one at the halfway house, and the other one at the halfway house pretended to be a DHO and took away his. Only a legitimate DHO can do that, right? Violations all around the board. Unless they prove me right. I haven't seen any legitimate documents to show, to understand that they are right. The fact that this stuff doesn't exist makes me believe that that is what happened. That they duped him, like he said. They held a sham process, right? So this is what's supposed to happen, right? So when you see the UDC then refers you to the DHO, and then you go to the DHO. So here in the disciplinary process, the original one from the prison, the disciplinary hearing officer, he conducts a hearing. He listens to you. You get to say whether you're guilty or not, defend yourself, and you challenge the process. He provides you a DHO report, right? After he's done, written report. There we go, right? So the DHO provides a written report. You receive a written copy of the DHO's decisions following the hearing. The DHO is not required to prepare verbatim, but these are the things that you would receive. The DHO written report will document the following: whether you were advised of your rights during the DHO process, the evidence relied upon, and that stuff. Did we see any of that stuff that they're talking about here? Absolutely not. There's no reasoning. There's no reasoning. Why did you take away his good conduct time? How much good conduct time? Is that even here? How much good conduct time they took? 54? Available good conduct. Yeah, it looks avail good conduct time. It looked like they took 54 from you, which is a lot too. I think that in itself might be a violation, because I think a DHO is only allowed to take about 27 for one incident, somewhere between 27 and 47 pertaining, I think, yeah. I could go. I'm not memorizing that stuff, but I could go look, right? I think that's wrong. Also, that they took way. If it's 54, they took from him. Man, that's brutal, all right? So yeah. So this is the process. This is the process that folks who are incarcerated are familiar with. And when you go anywhere within the Federal Bureau of Prisons, this is the process you are expected to be exposed to. Did that happen to this guy? No. We couldn't locate the Bronx halfway house disciplinary handbook, but we located the Brooklyn halfway house one. And in here, in that handbook, it contains disciplinary and grievance process, residence discipline. And if you read this, it says that a person is allowed to be given notice of the charges and stuff within 24 hours. Some of the stuff similar to what happens in the disciplinary process. We're not challenging that stuff, right? So they give it to him and so on and so forth, right? What we're challenging is the hearings, the UDC hearings, right? So here they are called the Center's Disciplinary Committee. Right? So here in the halfway house book, they're telling you when you get a disciplinary situation, you are to go to the center's disciplinary committee, individual conducting that hearing. And that person, of course, is supposed to follow all the due process rights, read him his rights and all of that stuff. And then that person, see here, 7, the resident will be given a written copy of the decisions and recommendations of the disciplinary action and or notification of the resident's right and procedure to appeal. When the sentence determines the resident is not guilty, right, they will dismiss it, right? When the sentence determines the resident has violated rules and regulations of government, Brooklyn recommended sanctions. Trial services, transfer renewal, the prohibited act, sanctions contained in a. All right, so I was looking for the time frame here. So in the handbook, it doesn't give the time frame that he should have received their recommendations and their decisions. This guy, they violated this policy here. They violated his due process, right? Because they conducted a UDC hearing and they never gave him his recommendations. They never told him anything. He just saw his time change. Right? He doesn't know. He doesn't know what's going on. But this is what was supposed to happen. It didn't happen. Right? Informal resolutions. Right? They could have addressed that. They didn't. Okay. Let's go. Grievance process. Grievance process. Difficulty has arisen between staff and saying you have the right to use the grievance process. First, you can informally bring the issue to caseworker. When he spoke to them, they ignored him. Alternative problem concerns regarding member facility director has 5 days work days, including weekends and holidays, to notify residents findings. Right? What is this? What happened to the informal resolution? You file an informal according to BOP policy. All places where Federal Bureau of Prisons incarcerated persons are, they are supposed to be going by that policy. It doesn't say anything about informal resolution here. Grievance process is just what is this? First you just say come and talk to us. What? Properly address the deputy director. Programs are still not satisfied. Your facility director. So you just want to talk to them, right? They're not allowing you to write anything and they're not giving you anything. That is not the process. You've seen it for yourself here. Facility directors, 5 working days, including weekends. What? For what? Where's the form? You got to fill out the form. Resolve, right? Should residential appeal admission. So appeal on what? You're not giving out any form. They didn't give him any form. They're not telling him that he gets a form, what form he's going to use, or anything here. Nothing at all. This is the Brooklyn halfway house, and I believe the Bronx halfway house is doing the same nonsense, right? It's horrible. Right? He tried to file a complaint and he couldn't. They told him they didn't accept his paperwork. They told him go to the region. So we did. And you saw how limited here they talked about his stuff. It doesn't even talk, as a matter, let me point this out. In the handbook here where it addresses his disciplinary process, it doesn't even mention the DHO. I want you to pay attention to that. The handbook doesn't even mention that the DHO is a part of the process. It's only the committee. Do you see DHO anywhere? I might be blind. Help me out here. I do wear glasses. Right? Where's the DHO? Right? You see, the major policy talks about the UDC referring stuff to the DHO. The disciplinary committee is supposed to do the same thing. Referral to DHO. This UDC and their committee at the halfway house is the same thing. They are supposed to do the same exact things in accordance with this policy. This one. This is the major policy on inmate discipline program. Every institution is supposed to mimic this and the rights that are afforded in Wolf versus McDonald. This guy, you're not warned at the halfway house that your DHO process is a sham. They don't even mention it here. They don't mention, right? So the original policy talks about UDC and DHO, the 2 levels. Right? This one only talks about 1 level. It doesn't even mention the halfway house. And they don't even talk about giving you forms. None of that. They don't tell you how much time to file. Nothing. Right? In the grievance process. Facility director, they just tell you the facility director has 5 days to respond. That's it. Man, I hope y'all seen it for yourself. I'm not making this shit up. This is original documents. Pull this stuff off of the internet, off of the Federal Bureau of Prisons website. Okay, this here is the policy. This here is the program statement for them to use in the prison. In the halfway house, right? this is what this is about. I skipped one page because I want to address, I want to stay on topic. The disciplinary hearing officer, right? This is that community corrections center staff, right? This is where you're addressing the disciplinary program. So procedures. Let's not deal with the escape first. Let's go deal with this. Community correction center staff they shall comply with the prison Bureau of Prisons prescribed policy and procedures for inmate discipline contained in the statement of work. All right. They comply with the disciplinary process. That's the one I showed you before. It should comply. Procedures upon admission to center. I'm going to skip that. They go straight in this document here. When it comes to addressing the disciplinary process, it goes straight to the disciplinary hearing officer. It says ordinarily within 3 working days of a receipt of a center disciplinary committee packet, the DHO shall review it for compliance with the center policy specified in McWolf versus McDonald. This is to see if any of your rights are violated. And then it goes on and it talks here, right? And then it just continues. And this DHO here, I hope you guys are seeing the differences. What I'm showing you here is 3 documents that all describe the disciplinary process for folks who are incarcerated within the Federal Bureau of Prisons at all levels. Specifically, the level we are dealing with here is the halfway house, and all 3 policies are different. The major one here about the DHO is different from the handbook, which alerts folks to the system. It doesn't even mention the DHO in this one and what that policy is. And then the policy that manages the halfway house doesn't mention the committee process before. It just goes straight to the DHO process, right? It just goes straight to the DHO process, and it tells you that the DHO is going to review All right? What about the DHO report and stuff so that the person could file? Nothing, right? What is going on here? Right? And it says here they're going to give you, shall maintain a record information minimum log shall contain. Right? So there's a log. It doesn't say anything about giving the person anything. How are they supposed to appeal if you don't give them the stuff? What's really going on here, folks? What is going on? I hope you're seeing this with your own 2 eyes. They are violating and confusing and keeping the slaves in disarray so that they can't get anything done. They can't challenge them. They violate you, and that's it. Live with it. That is their policy. That's what they abide by. Confusion and abuse. 3 different policies saying 3 different things. None of them are clear as, what is the process? What is Negron supposed to expect? Nada. Which he got. If you got 3 different policies that's saying 3 different things, what do you want to give him? Nothing. Can't give him anything, right? This is horrible. This is horrible. It's happening to folks in that system on and off, on and on and on. Okay, let me show you this. Escapes. All right, so he was charged with escape. Now remember, Negron's situation, he got arrested, he left home, he went to the place, tried to get in his apartment, tried to break in his own place, got arrested, taken to the police station, spent the night, returned to the halfway house, and informed staff what happened. He was now back in their custody, and he informed them of what happened to him. They turned around and placed him on escape. Let's see what the policy talks about escape here. And pay attention, because a lot of folks don't catch this. I'm gonna make sure you catch what you need to catch. All right. It says here, the definition and application. It says any committed inmate who fails to report to a contract facility for admission. This is not his case, right? This is when you're entering. If you fail to report there after they send you to the halfway house, if you fail to get there, obviously you fall under escape because they don't know where you're at. Good. Fails to remain at an approved place of employment or training during the hours of specified by the terms of the employment or training program. That one is Negron, right? He fails to remain at an approved place of employment or training during the hours of specified by the terms of the employment or training program. He did that. That one applies. But hold up. That is not the whole statement. That is just a portion of the statement. All right? Let's go through the rest of them. Fails to return to the facility at the prescribed time. He returned to the facility at his prescribed time, or probably before. He probably went after what happened to him. They didn't even know he was missing. They didn't even know that he left home. They didn't know he was missing. He told them what happened. That's when they realized, oh shit, this guy was in the police station all night and we didn't even know. We didn't know he left home. Somebody didn't make the phone calls that they were supposed to be made. All right? Because they had no clue that this guy was missing. He told them. He went back there. Obviously, this one doesn't apply because he returned to the facility on his own at the time or before to let them know what happened, or fails to return from any other approved absence at the time of place of stipulated. He returned. He didn't fail to return. May be placed on escape status. Okay, so only thing that applies is fails to remain at approved place. And the last line. So let me read this to you as it should for Mr. Negron. Mr. Negron failed to remain at an approved place of employment or training during the hours specified by the terms of the employment and or training program. Wait a minute. That doesn't even apply because he was home on Sabbath. It's a program. He was home on a religious program. Maybe that would work. But as you can see, that's talking about specifically employment. I don't even know if any of this applies to Mr. Negron anymore. That's all, right? But I would say if he left his home and disappeared, what matters here is this last line. It says, may be placed on escape status after staff have completed and documented routine procedures to locate the individual. All of this has to be in context. So the only way they get to hit Mr. Negron with a legitimate escape situation is if he left his home, went to this house, got arrested, they were calling him and couldn't locate him. He wasn't answering his phone like they're supposed to. They couldn't find him. They didn't know where he was at. He was obviously not home. So because of that, they can place him, after doing the documents, the routine procedures to locate him, they can place him on escape. That's not his situation. They were not looking for him. They didn't know he was missing. And he was at the facility when he told them what happened. So obviously he was returned. If he had escaped, they didn't know. Surely they didn't know. And surely he wasn't escaped anymore. They escaped because he returned. So how could you charge him with escape when he wasn't escaped? He was in your presence. He was in your... You see what I'm saying? And none of these apply to his situation, because the closest one talks about approved place of employment or training, and he was home on religious practice. So that technically that isn't even really apply. So the guy didn't escape. He didn't escape. He was in their custody. He was in front of them. They didn't even know he was missing. How could you charge him with escape? Because you didn't do your process of completing documents and routine procedures to find him. You didn't have to do that because he was in front of you. That last line is extremely important to escape to this whole process. They have to go through the process of trying to locate the person. And if you can't locate the person based on one of those things that he's done, you place him on escape. That is not what happened for Negron. He didn't escape. The charge of escape is abusive and false, and it's a violation of his due process rights. And they did it to extend his days so that they could make some easy money. That's all. They wanted the easy cash. Oh, what? You did what? You got yourself arrested? Oh, man. That's an easy 54 days. Oh, don't worry, we got you. Here's this incident report. We're going to put you through the sham DHO process, this sham process, and then, what you're going to do is we're going to go ahead and, take away your good conduct time, and you're going to do some extra days, which we're going to charge the taxpayers for. All right? We're going to charge them for that, and we're going to make a little extra bucks. That's all this stuff is about. I hope you guys are seeing this through the policy here, right? The policies don't match up. This is all a mess. Okay? I hope I did a good job in exposing the nonsense that's going on at the halfway houses in Brooklyn and the Bronx with folks. The disciplinary process is a sham. It's a massive failure. They did it to me. They doing it to Negron and many others. Countless folks. While I was there, the true reason why they violated me was not because I was late coming back from school, because that is not a returnable offense. That's not an offense worthy of returning someone to prison. But they abused that process and sent me back to prison. It's because I was helping guys out with appealing sanctions and all the different things, because they charged one guy with escape, and I was helping him out. And I did help him out with his appeal, and unfortunately he ended up back in prison in front of a DHO in prison, and that DHO threw the case out, right? But he ended up back in prison doing time in prison anyway. They charge folks with these escapes which are false and unreasonable, and they take away good conduct time to make money. Big business, the business of slavery. That's what this stuff is. It's not about re-entry. It's not. If it was about justly getting Negron, they could have sanctioned Negron for violating his religious program, or going home, or violating his pass, by leaving home and getting himself arrested. They could have wrote a sanction or something like that. If it, and that would be that. He wouldn't have lost good conduct time. They could have kept him in the halfway house for the rest of his time or whatever. If they wanted to do the right thing, the legitimate thing. But it's not about that. It's not about doing the right thing. It's not about doing what's legitimate. It's about the money. It's the business of slavery. Slave nation, United States of America. They got you. Federal Bureau of Prisons. You see it here for yourself. Check this stuff out. It doesn't match. None of it reads appropriate. None of it. It's any incarcerated person is confused. How is the guy supposed to appeal this? They doesn't tell him what he's supposed to get, what he's supposed to do. The students addressed it here in this complaint that we have in front of the region. I'll probably do a part 2 and show you what they usually try to back up and cover severe nonsense like this. to protect themselves from a lawsuit. I expect the region to try to back this nonsense up. And so I might be doing a part 2 to this video. All right. So yeah, David Simpson, the criminal justice realm, remedy project, again, exposing the violations that the Federal Bureau of Prisons and or the prison system exacts on the slaves incarcerated within it. And this is what we do. We defend them. We help them out. We make, we advocate on behalf of them for the purpose of putting a stop to this nonsense. It has to stop, folks. So support us at the Remedy Project. Make some donations. A recurring donation of $5 or more would help challenge this. Help us keep challenging this stuff. Help the students keep doing this work. Will help get some more formerly incarcerated professionals like me on board. So because the demand for our help is growing, and we need folks on board. So help us do that. My staff at the criminal justice realm. Unfortunately, we don't get paid for this work that we're doing now. We're hoping that in the future, we'll make something off of residual views of these videos. But they're educational videos that can be boring and or that folks would only look at if they want to help and or learn how to help folks on the inside. So, maybe there won't be that many views. So please consider supporting the staff at the criminal justice realm for producing these wonderful educational videos and doing the great job of defending folks who are incarcerated. David Simpson here once again, Criminal Justice Realm Remedy Project. See you the next video.